video series, I'll be talking about sales letter copywriting. So, how do you write sales copy from scratch? Well, if you don't know anything about sales copy right now, you're actually in a good spot because I'm going to teach you from scratch how to do that. So you can use sales copy for writing your products, sales copy, landing pages. Now, before we get started, I want to show you the videos that I'll be talking about in this specific video series. As you can see here, I've got numbers 1 through 9. That shows you that I have 9 videos. In the first video, I'll be talking about the basic concepts and the tools that you need. Of course, the tools that we'll be using are all free, so don't worry about that. Video 2, I'll be talking about identifying your prospect, such as how to write with personality, make it exciting, and gathering the questions to ask your prospectus. So basically, I'm going to show you how you can get into the mind of your prospect to understand how they react to your future sales copy. Video 3 and 4 are similar. We'll be talking about sales letter format. Now in video 3, I'll be talking about layouts, fonts, with the letter, and the color scheme. Video 4, I'll be talking about long letter versus short letter. There's a big debate between people as of whether long letters are better or short letters are better. And video 5, writing the sales letter. Video 6 and video 7, well, I'll be talking about similar things. Now in video 5, I'll be talking about the top area of the sales letter, such as headlines, subheadlines, addressing your prospect, and the introduction paragraph. Video 6, I'll be talking about the middle part, which is announcing your solution, benefits, and features. And of course, video 7, the ending part, we'll talk about the endorsements, testimonials, proof, such as screenshots, to increase your conversion rates, bonuses, guarantees, buy it now or call to actions, and PSs. Now, while I will be giving you a few real life examples in between the videos in itself, in number 8 I'll show you even more so you can get a better idea of how all these things come together. And of course in video 9 I'll be talking about the closing, the Google AdWords website optimizer feature so that you can do split testing. If you don't know what split testing is, think of a headline. You can put 2 headlines and make it so you can test out which headline has the better conversion rate. So we'll be going and using that Google feature. So with that said, let me go ahead and go back up here. I'll be talking about the introduction to the concept and the actual tools that you'll need. Now, if you're going to be successful at running a business, it is a must that you need to know how to sell. Let's talk about the offline world. In the offline world, you have to know how to deal with people, how to address their problems and address a solution, which is what you're going to be selling, of course. Now let's talk about the online world. In the online world, you will still have to sell. However, luckily, your sales letter is what stands as your 24/7 salesman. Think about it. You have people in different countries, different time zones. When you're sleeping and they're awake, they need to come to your website and read your sales copy, which is going to be your salesman. So that way you can sell to them. So you need to have really good sales copy, and that's why we emphasize creating this video series. Now before I talk about the tools that you need, let me talk about the skills that you need. There are a few skills that you need before you actually dive into this video series. So the number 1 skill is, of course, good writing skills. You need to have good writing skills as far as grammar goes, good English goes. Because if you can't write good English and you don't have good grammar, then people will judge you by that. Remember this, people will judge you as they read the sales letter. If they see lots and lots of typos and lots of grammar mistakes, and they read that, they're going to assume that you're not professional enough. So think about, people judge a book by its cover. In this case, they're going to judge your writing skills with your product. The second skill is personality. Yes, you need to write with personality. You need to stay away from formal and boring letters. Stick with a friendly and approachable attitude in your letter. And by doing so, You make it exciting as the reader reads the sales copy. And of course, last, you need to take action. So let's go ahead and talk about the tools that you need. I would call it really tools and concepts, because some of these things are information that you need to gather, such as sales letter items. You need to know what you're going to write about before you actually get started. If you're watching this video and you don't know what to write about, don't worry, you can figure that out later on. You also need a program that's called NVU. It's a WYSIWYG HTML program. WYSIWYG means what you see is what you get. So it's basically a web editor tool that allows you to edit web pages without having any knowledge at all whatsoever about web editing. So let me go ahead and go to NVU and show you how you can download the software. Go ahead and click Google search and look for the downloads. And the great thing about NVU is if you've used things like Microsoft Word or word processors, then you'll find this program very easy to use. You can either go to nvudev.com, as you can see here, but I find the shortest way is just to click on this link. It says download.com/NVU. So if I go there, you'll notice that I can just immediately click on download and download the program. So you want to save that and install that onto your system and go ahead and run it, because we'll actually be using that in the future videos. And it's free, which is the great part. So before we get started in actually writing the sales letter and how to format the sales letter, I want to talk about identifying your prospect. And here's why. Your prospect is who you're going to be writing to. So you'll need to figure out who your prospect or who your audience is and how they think and how they react. I'll also talk about how to write with personality. And the third thing I'll talk about is what questions to ask the prospect. So what are things that you need to gather beforehand before you actually write the sales letter? So let's talk about identifying your prospect. There are a few things to keep in mind when you're writing your sales letter. First, you need to write it like you're writing a letter, like a letter to your friend who, let's say for example, you're in the bodybuilding niche and you're writing to a fellow bodybuilder about you found this great product, you got to write it to them. And don't be all formal. So things to look out for is don't be too formal, but you need to know who they are. How do they think and what are their greatest needs? And I'll move this to the bottom because that's more of a how to write type of deal. You also need to know that when you write a sales letter, to write it to the person. So try not to use I, try to use you a lot. Avoid using we, you all. You want to write the sales letter so that you're writing right directly to the prospect. You might not know who the prospect is, but you're writing dear fellow business owner or dear fellow bodybuilder, a solution for you, not you all, or we have a solution. Don't use we and don't use you all. Try to make it focus into you or I, and avoid using I unless you have to, but sometimes you might have to, but most of the time you can use you, and we'll show you how to do that. Now in this video series, before we actually show you more real life examples, I'm going to be showing you Edmund Lowe's Instant Covers Pack, and we'll be actually be using this specific sales letter as an example as we go through the actual video series. And to point out what I mentioned earlier about you, you'll notice he says you a lot. He says you, your. In rare cases, you notice that he'll use I doubt so or anything like that, especially when he's asking a question or engaging the reader to answer a question. So while you're trying to avoid using I, sometimes you can use it when you're interacting with the person directly. But most of the time you want to make it about them. So it's all about you, and you. So the second thing I want to talk about is writing with personality, or how to make it interesting. That would be a better way of saying it. So today I'm going to make you think a little opposite. We're going to think of things that make things not interesting. And we're going to create a list of those things. And I'm going to show you what makes things not interesting. Because a lot of times people tell you things as it is, but they don't make you think about it. Because a lot of times it's easier to think the negative and then reverse it to the positive later on. So if you're reading a sales letter or a letter, things that come to my mind are if it's boring, not friendly, too formal, not easygoing, too strict, too hypey. And this is probably a few of the reasons of why people actually get turned away after reading a letter or after reading an article, newspaper, whatever. Doesn't need to be a sales page. Now let's think about the opposite or the flip side of these being not interesting. So what's the opposite of boring? Exciting, friendly, informal. Informal being like you're writing to a friend. Easygoing, less hypey, but real. Because you got to remember one thing. People flock together. You've heard the saying, birds of a feather flock together. So if you're exciting, you're friendly, writer, informal, easygoing, less hypey but real, then people that are the same way will begin to flock to you. And at the same time, they're going to think, wow, this letter is exciting. And as they read down the headline, the body page, they want to read more. So you want to focus on making this more exciting, more friendly, easygoing, less hypey, but real. So when you do that, and it's probably common sense here, but we want to look at it just because it's very important. Now sometimes the question is, how do you turn exciting, friendly, informal, easygoing, less hypey, but real, and turn it into an actual sales letter? Let's go back and take a look at the sales letter here that we're looking at, and you'll notice that it's written as Dear Friend. Now, it might be a little bit formal, but as you get down to the actual sales letter, you want to make it less formal and make it easygoing. You want to engage the person by asking questions. As you can see here, at the top you have a headline. It's easy to see the headline, so it's easygoing. The way you make it easygoing and make it readable is by the format, which we'll be talking about later on. So make it easy to read but exciting at the same time, using exclamation marks, but you don't want to use too much so that you avoid becoming hypey. Hypey means that you're claiming too much, this and that. While it often works, some people get turned away from that. So the third question that you will want to ask is, what questions will your prospects ask that you should answer beforehand? So these are questions that you need to gather the answers to before you actually begin to write your sales letter. So here's a list of questions that you might want to ask yourself before you actually begin to write the sales letter. I provided a PDF file with these questions right below this video, so you can go ahead and download that, right click on the link and save the PDF file as. So the first question you want to ask is, why should your prospects buy from you? You can begin to explain what your prospects face, the problems they face, and that your product or service fulfills that needs. And other questions you might want to answer is, why should they trust you? How are you an expert in this area? And what is your credibility? So if you have any proof of that, testimonials actually work great for this. If testimonials say, so-and-so, I bought this product and it really helped me out, that would actually prove some of the credibility and some of the claims that you might be claiming in the sales letter. And we'll talk about testimonials later down the road. So the next question is, how can your product or service help solve their problems or their needs? That's one of the things that your prospect is going to be looking for in your sales letter. Oftentimes you can explain that in the headline itself, because you can address their problem, and then they're going to assume that, of course, their problems are going to be solved through your actual product or service. So that's probably one of the number one things that you want to address first, is within your headline and your sub-headline. And we'll talk about the headline and sub-headline later down the road. Also, you want to ask, why should they purchase your product or service? Why not your competition's? You're going to have competition that's going to be selling similar products or similar services. Why should they buy from you, and why should they not buy from your competition? So you want to separate that out and list out features and benefits, possible competitions that you have, and do a compare and contrast of your competition in comparison of your product. A lot of times, actually, that's what people use is reviews. They'll review and they'll say, here's my competition and this is what I provide. The next question you want to ask is how your product is worth what you're asking for. If you're asking for $47 or $47 a month, it'd be good to show them what they're getting in comparison to probably your competition. Why should they pay for it? You're offering a cheap price, you're offering lots of content, you're over-delivering, they're getting more than their money, things like that. And then you want to ask, why should they buy it immediately and not wait? A lot of times people get down to the payment button. They think, well, I really don't need it now, I can wait later. But you want to create some sort of urgency, whether you're having only 500 copies sold, 200 copies sold, or they only get it for a certain amount of time, and that when that time passes, then they don't get it anymore. So you want to go ahead and answer these questions before we actually get on to the next video, if you're writing your sales letter now. If you're not, don't worry about it, but go ahead and download that PDF so that you have it in hand before you actually write your sales letter. So let's talk about sales letter format, layout, fonts, width of letter, color scheme, and more. The sales letter format, or the way your sales letter looks, is very important. Here's why. The human mind, when they look at a sales letter, they're not always going to look at words. Some people will just look at the words, but the majority of people out there will look at your design, they'll look at your layout, they'll look at your fonts. If it's not easy on their eyes, then most of the time they're going to just exit out, unless it's the product that they really, really want. But most of the time, if you make it easy for their eyes, layout-wise, it's professional enough, the fonts are clear, they can read it. The width of the letter is important too, because you don't want to stretch it from one end to all the way to the other end, and I'll show you that in just a minute when I use NVU, the HTML editing tool. We'll also talk about color schemes and other things like that. So let me go ahead and go to NVU here. This is NVU, the web editing tool, and it's sort of like Microsoft Word if you used Microsoft Word before. So it basically can create web pages or sales pages very easily. And this is actually a tool that I use to create sales pages. The first thing I want to start out by doing is make a table. So I'll press enter and go to table, insert table. All I want is just one basic table. And then I'll right click inside of that table and I'll click on table cell properties. And I'll go to table and I want to make sure that it's chosen pixels here for the width, and I'll make it about 700 width. And I'll make the border 0, because you see that border there, it's kind of ugly. I don't want to see that. And the padding I'll probably put about 15. And I'll align it center, which allows me to move the table to the center so that I avoid stretching it from one end to the other. And I'll show you that in just a minute. So if I click on apply here, press OK, you'll notice that NVU has created a table. It's about 700, and there we go. And if I type stuff in, it's not going to be too close to the border here. Now it looks kind of squeezed in just because I have this in, I'm recording this and it's only 640 by 480, so if I stretch this out, you'll actually see the actual sales letter. And you'll notice that here's the end part, the beginning part, and the margins separated on this end too. So you can see it's actually in the middle. But let me go ahead and squeeze that back in so you can see that more clearly. So you basically want your sales letter to cover about 70 to 80% of the actual width. You don't want to have it 100%, otherwise it's going to make it look ugly and it's going to make it hard to read, which is worse for the actual prospect. So I'm sort of skipping around here. I talked about the width of the letter, which is important. And now let's go ahead and talk about the layout and the fonts. The layout and the fonts are important in the sense where we look at the sales letter, because what people will do is when they scan a sales letter, most people won't even read the full sales letter, but you want to make it so you'll see that this is a different font than this. You'll notice the headline, subheadline, and the attention has different fonts to it. And you'll notice the body of the actual sales letter has a specific font to it. So you can separate the sales copy, the main sales copy, from the actual product copy, the benefits and the features and all that. So people sort of can get a good idea when they actually look at a sales letter. Their mind's going to think, okay, this font is located with benefits, this font here is associated with main sales copy. And this is actually one of the tips that I learned when somebody edited my own sales copy, was they said, you know, your headline has to be a different font, different size font, and certain things need to be the same, such as the sales copy body here. The testimonials need to be in a certain way, and we'll show you that later on. So basically what I'm showing you is layout. The layout of your copy, as far as font goes, you need to have similar font, especially when the people's minds think, okay, this is the main sales copy, testimonials, benefits, and things like that. One thing that is important as far as layout goes is that you need to make sure that you're writing on a blank white background. White background, black words, as you can see here, because it's easy for the eyes that way. You've probably seen people who put purple backgrounds, white lettering. And if you use other colors like purple and put white words, then it doesn't look very professional at all. So some of the easiest fonts that are easy for people to see and that you want to keep and want to use are Arial black, something that's straight up. Possibly Verdana, Georgia, Courier New, or lastly, you can also use Tahoma. And the reason why these are easy to read is because you'll notice that they stand straight up. Now it's okay if you highlight things, like if you do highlights, increase the different sizes, different colors, underline, italicize, especially when you're trying to emphasize like a fact, or you have sub headlines or sub connecting sentences within your copy that connect your copy together. That's okay. If you want things to stand out, like highlighting, that's great too. And you'll notice most of the time when you read sales letters that are high converting, they'll have underlining of specific keywords that you know will hit your prospect's specific needs and points. And we got to color scheme. So the color scheme, you don't want to use more than 4, 5, or 6 different colors in your sales letter. Otherwise, as far as font goes, it's okay if you're using pictures, but as far as font goes, most of the time I would suggest that you just use black, red, and blue. You can use other colors if you'd like, but try to keep that to the minimum, just because it makes your page look more professional if you use less colors. So red, black, and blue. And you can, doesn't matter about background, we're talking about font color here. So that takes care of the color scheme. So we've done layouts, fonts, width of letter, and color scheme. So these are important things that you need to understand before you actually create the sales letter. So let's go on to the next video where I talk about another type of sales letter format, which we talk about long sales letter versus short sales letter and which one is actually better. So here's the big question: long letter or short letter? Which one is better? Well, there's a big debate between different people who say the long letter is better or the short letter. But according to the copywriters that I've hired to fix my sales letters in the past, many years ago, they've always told me long letter always beats the short letter. And here's why. If we're looking at a long letter, it really tests the patience of the person. If you look at a short squeeze page that you're merely trying to build your list, then you might get them onto your list quickly. Let me give you a quick example here. This is a list that I built a long time ago, and it's a freebie product that I gave out a long time ago, and I had people proofread it and copywriters help me with this page. It used to be a squeeze page, and for a while I would be getting people on my list that even though they were double opt-ins, they wouldn't even convert. When I changed it into an actual long sales letter, then I began to get people maybe at a slower pace, but at the same time my conversion rates began to increase. So that showed me by tests and different sales letters that I had that if you're trying to build a list, either of customers or a list that you want to convert later into paid customers, long sales letters always beat it. Because what happens is, if people have the patience to go from the top all the way to the bottom to actually read the sales letter, there are people who read the top, read the middle, and scan through it, and that's normal, but their ability to actually take the time to scroll, it says something. So I have noticed that the long sales letter often beats the short sales letter because they have the patience to get all the way down, whether it's a freebie, whether it's a paid product, or whatever. Because in that case, people actually take the time to read your sales letter, and you get people who want to be on your list. And I'm going at this from the perspective of being consulted by copywriters a while back and having tests actually done. And I remember actually doing ad swaps, and my sales page would be a squeeze page, which would only be about 200, 300 words. I get more people onto my list, but I get people that complain more and would only seek freebie things. And the people that I built the list upon who were either paid or went through some sort of long sales letter, they actually converted much higher. Now, it's true that some people will say that they don't like to read the long sales letter, and that's fine. But when that happens, you know that these types of people, or most of these types of people, don't even want to be your customer anyways. So with that said, the long letter tests patience and if they really want it. Because the long sales letter, even if you're giving a freebie away, like what I showed you earlier, they have to read through it and they have to scroll all the way to the bottom to actually get the freebie. And if they've gotten that far, that says something about the people that you're getting onto your list. Plus, if you create a long sales letter, you create a more exciting atmosphere. People get to know you better versus a short letter. You're basically saying buy now, sign up now. You're using the hard sell method, and people don't really get to know you that well through that. And the more people get to know you, the more they actually buy from you because they feel like they actually know you, and when you recommend products and other things like that, then they'll feel more open to listening to you versus if they just signed up through a hard sell, short sales letter. So with that said, let's go ahead and talk about how many pages you should have. Well, if you take a look at any sales letter, most of the time you have one page. Now, I'm not talking about when you print it out as a whole. If you go to File, Print, or Print Preview, you'll notice that there are more than one page. There's about 18 pages if you print it out. However, what I'm talking about here is if you actually scroll down, and this is one page. Now, you want to avoid having pages that say one page, click here, second page, third page, fourth page. So the thing you want to do here is if you have to have links like privacy, terms and conditions, put them at the bottom. Like for this page, I have a demo, so it goes to another page. As you can see here, it says demo, see a sample video in action. So if I click this link, what you want to do is you want to make it open up into a new window so that if they close that window, they still have your page. Otherwise, let's say you click that and it opens up in that sales page itself, then what happens is if they close out of it, they won't find your other sales page. So you want to, if you ever create any other pages like demos and things like that, you want to make sure that you open it in a new window. So to do that, you can actually say demo, and if you create a link to it, you just click on link here and you enter the link. It'd be www.yahoo.com just for an example, and you'll notice that you have a target here, and just click on link is to be opened in new window. Press OK. That way when somebody clicks on your actual link, then they go to a different page. And you save the trouble of losing prospects who might click on the demo link, exit it, and don't know how to get back. So the rule of thumb, make sure you don't have any links unless it goes to a different page other than your pay or buy it now button. So you have this page, your buy it now button, any possible other links like terms of service, conditions, privacy statement. But if you have a link, make sure that it goes out to a different window. You might also notice that I have a members login here, but it's self-explanatory, so prospects and new prospects might come and they won't click on that, of course, unless they actually are a member. So other than that, try to avoid including links on your web page unless they're demo links. If as all possible, include them on that same sales letter page, so you avoid them having distractions and going off your page. So let's begin to write the sales letter. In this specific video, I'll be talking about the upper part of the sales letter, such as the headline, subheadline, addressing your prospect, and the introduction of the sales letter. The headline is what grabs the viewer and the prospect into wanting to read further down your sales letter. If the headline is catchy, it'll do just that. If it's not, it'll have the opposite effect. There's actually many different types of headlines. The headline is a very, very crucial part of your sales letter. It can make or break your actual sales letter. Let's take a quick look at a few headlines. If we go back to the Instant Covered Pack sales letter, you'll notice that we have the headline here. It's what you see at the top, and this right here is a subheadline, but we'll talk about that in just a minute. The headline is written in red normally, and you can also make it bold and put words, keywords, make them stand out by using underlines, bolds, italicize, highlighting, as you can see here. And you can also do strike-throughs to strike through words. Now, most headlines promise a benefit because, of course, if you're reading this, then you want to know, how is this product or service, before I even read it, how is it going to actually help me? Right now it says, discover my one-of-a-kind method that instantly generates professional e-covers on the fly to maximize your product's perceived value, impress visitors, and skyrocket your conversion rates starting today. So in this headline, you can see it's sort of like a cause and effect. You can discover those e-covers, or you discover that product, and that product will do what? So this is the cause and effect it will maximize your product's perceived value, impress visitors, blah blah blah. So the one thing to think about when you create your headline is think about your product, and you can say something like discover this or how to do this. And the most important thing to remember is that when you write your headline, you can list out benefits. You're promising a big benefit. So you can say you get this benefit, you get this benefit, and you get this benefit. Or you get this thing, you get this thing, and you get this thing. But by telling people what they get, it doesn't fulfill their needs and their problems. You say you get this, this, and this, but you also get this, which does this. So it's a cause and effect kind of deal. Or let's take, for example, this sales letter here. We say revealed how to send your online income through the roof with professionally made videos with private label rights. And then you have a subheadline that allows them to move down. But what I'm saying here is you can tell them, okay, how to do this with this. So you get this benefit, this is the benefit, and this is the actual product as being the solution. So hopefully you're getting the idea that it's you get this, but what does this actually do for the prospect? Now let's dive into different types of headlines. There are many different types of headlines. However, when you actually write your headline, you can combine 3 or more of these types of headlines together into one big headline so that you can hit different points. So let's go over those 5 headline types. The first one I want to talk about is the news or informational headline. The news or informational headline is something that you would probably find in a newspaper, or something that allows the prospect to learn something new that they might not have already known previously. This e-cover creates shiny looking e-covers. That would be informational. Now the next headline that I want to talk about is a guarantee headline or a promise headline. What you're doing in this headline is you're promising or guaranteeing the prospect something. Like this, for instance. We say here that our e-cover method will maximize your product's perceived value, impress visitors, and skyrocket your conversion rates starting today. So starting today would be sort of like a guarantee. The third type of headline that I'll be talking about is a selective to a specific group. So it's a selective headline that is pointed directly to a specific group that has specific problems, such as to everybody who has the flu, everybody that has the cold, or to everybody that has allergies, to a specific group. And you have to be careful when you use these types of headlines, because if you're writing to a general group, then you might not want to use a specific selective headline. But if you're writing to a specific niche, like people who have the flu, then you can say to everybody who has the flu, and you only want to target these specific people. Fourth, we have the curious headline. Well, curious headlines is they arouse interest, but the only problem is that sometimes people can see them as deceptive or clever or tricky. So, as I mentioned earlier about these other headlines at the end, is they can be specific, but they can still, you can push people away if they read it, so you got to be careful about that. And lastly, we have the hard sell or demand headline. Of course, as you know, hard sell would be something like, get it now, grab your copy today, otherwise it's going to be gone. Basically a hard sell method of saying, get it now, get it now, get it now. And it's okay if you use parts of these in your headline, but you don't want to use just specifically one. Because if you only use the hard sell, then nobody's probably going to buy from you, because they're going to be like, well, why should I buy from you? So you might want to include the informational guarantee hard sell, or informational guarantee selective specific group, or sometimes this and this. But you want to use a combination in your headline. So now that I've talked about the headline, let's move on to the next areas of the sales letter. After you write this headline, writing the sub-headline and addressing your prospect in the introduction, all that is going to be easy. So let's move on to the sub-headline here. If we look at this sales letter again, we notice that the sub-headline is located right underneath the headline. So you could say something like, as I'll read this, it says, finally, you don't have to dish out a small fortune to hire a graphic designer. So you're sort of addressing the purpose here. You're saying, well, in the headline talked about my e-cover, one-of-a-kind method e-cover that does this, and my one-of-a-kind method, you won't have to dish out a fortune to hire a graphic designer. So basically your sub-headline's goal is to build upon the headline so that people can read below that. So it sort of complements the headline. Or we can take a look at this one. You'll notice that I have the headline up here, and I say read below, and I actually ask them to read below to uncover how these branded videos could be your missing link to earning ridiculous piles of cash. So basically my goal is to use this sub-headline here to complement the headline here to get them to read below that. Now, as far as format goes, you'll notice that the sub-headline is much smaller. So you want to make it so that it is at least less than half of the size of your headline. You want to make the headline stand out. And that moves us immediately to addressing the prospect. Now, if I go to the sales page here, you'll notice that right below that we have from the keyboard of Edmund Lowe, blah, blah, blah. So that would be addressing the prospect. And you would say, dear friend, such and such. Now, it's up to you if you want to use dear friend or dear, I think I have something different here, dear colleague. So it really depends on you if you want to use dear friend, dear, e-cover specialist, or dear to-be e-cover expert, stuff like that. But honestly, it's just probably better just to say dear friend or dear colleague or something general. But if you want to make it specific and only do it selective towards a specific group, you could do that too. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you want to say from so-and-so. It doesn't matter if you say from the keyboard of, from the desk of. I know I use from the desk of a lot. And you can have the date. So here's the layout of it. You got the headline, sub-headline, and you could say from the desk of your name. And it's up to you if you want to include an image of yourself. If you do, I would recommend just putting it right above here. So you could click there and click on image, and basically you'll want to choose file and find your image. And just press OK and click this and press OK. And you'll have your image there. And of course you want to say from the desk of your name and then put the date and today's date. Now, if you don't want to put today's date and you want something that will constantly change the date every single day, for example, today is September 2nd, but what he did was he included a script right here that will show the prospect the actual date. And to get that, let me show you where you can get that script. Right now I am at google.com and I want to go to a site called Dynamic Drive. So I'll go ahead and search for that and click on this. And what we're looking for here are date and time. So go click on date and time, and you're looking for a script that might be compatible with Firefox, IE, and Opera. Since most people use IE and Firefox, that's what we're looking for. So it's up to you whatever you want to pick here. I normally just pick the basic stuff. So whatever script that you use, you'll have to follow the instructions. Normally it'll say add the code below to your HTML page, and by doing so, all you have to do is make sure that you replace this token variable here with the script. So what I normally do, I'll move this up so you can see it, but I'll name the date something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then I'll go into the source code and I'll find that. Now basically take the code and replace that token variable, or that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, with the actual JavaScript. And that way you don't even have to know any HTML or web coding. So next, that takes us to the introduction paragraph. The introduction paragraph is located right after the Dear So-and-so area, and I'll show you that by looking at these sales letters here. You'll notice that I have Dear Colleague and I have questions here, and from this point to about this point, that's the introduction that I'm using. And then we're looking at Edmund's page here, and from the Dear Friend, we have from here to here. That's pretty much the introduction. And then you, of course, you announce the product. We'll actually talk about that in the next video. In the introduction, it's very important to keep your readers constantly reading, because what they're going to be asking is, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? What's in it for me? So you really need to have words that you can engage them with so that they can constantly be excited about it, so they can continue reading down the sales page. So what you need to do is you need to address existing problems. And let me give you an example here. This is another sales page here, and I'm addressing them. I say Dear Friend and ClickBank Affiliate Marketer, and then I address some problems. And you'll notice that these problems are actually listed as a positive use. So one thing, it says avoid from having your affiliate commission stolen, because a lot of ClickBank affiliate marketers have their affiliate commission stolen. So that's one big thing. And then save time and effort. Time and money are probably the biggest things that people face. So we talk about that there. So as you're beginning to think what's in it for them, you can list out 4 or 5 or 3 to 5 different things that you think that will hit their needs and solve their needs and address their problems. So usually I start out with these, and then, you know, if you've checked any of these boxes, continue reading down just so you can keep them going down the page and reading it. The second thing you want to do is you want to relate to them. Use your credibility, your expertise, you know. And here is another example where I asked them questions. I said, does it sound like you? And you address the problems that they face. I can't sell anything. Nobody buys my stuff, which is a common issue. And when people read that, they think, okay, well, I want to read further down. And then you talk about how easy it is to sell videos. And then perhaps you can provide testimonials of people who are actually using your product and actually making money with that. So you want to make it believable so that you can use your credibility, use your expertise to show them and relate to them with their problem. Once you address the problems and relate to them, then you can announce your solution, which I'll be talking about in the next video. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the middle section of writing your sales letter, which includes announcing your product or service, solution, and the benefits and the features. So for most sales letter, as far as the format goes, you'll notice that right below the introduction, where you talk about more about the product and more about the problems that your prospects are facing, you'll notice that right under there it says introducing or announcing, you know, this product here. And the same goes for all these other products. As you'll notice in the somewhere it says announcing that product, or even here I use the same exact thing here. It says introducing the product. So this would be announcing the actual product or service, and then you would list out basically what they're getting, and you would be answering the question that they have, what am I buying? So you can provide them with what they're getting, and you don't want to talk about the bonuses just yet. We'll talk about that probably later down the road. And right below the area where you actually announce your product or service solution, you'll have your benefits versus the features. Now, when we look at the benefits versus the features, the benefits are actually what do they get from using your product. The features are actually your product itself. So when I begin to announce the product, And you'll notice right below here that says you get 5 totally unique professional e-cover Photoshop action strips. Now, those are features of this instant covers pack. So what they're getting and what they're receiving are the features. The benefits, as I showed you just earlier, are right here. It says 10 totally cool reasons why you should choose instant cover pack today. You can save precious time, save plenty of money, save tons of effort, impress your visitors, prospects, and customers, and more. These are benefits because you're saying, okay, if you get my product, which is the instant covers pack, you're going to save precious time because you don't have to do it yourself, or you're going to impress your visitors, increase your conversion rates, and things like that. So you want to address what they're getting first, and then you want to address how they can use it. So similar thing here too. If you scroll down here, you'll notice that I address what they're getting and what they can do with these videos. And I address, kind of do it a little backwards, but it's okay. It works too. And since this is a membership site, I provide them with information, membership benefit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So here are the benefits, and then when they see that, sometimes they'll say, oh, well, these are great benefits and these things apply to me, and they want to know more about it. So it really is dependent up to you, but you do, whatever you do, you want to make sure that you have the benefits and the features together. And the one biggest mistake that I've noticed that people have made in the past when they write sales copy is a lot of times they only tell people about the features and what they're getting. They never ever include the actual benefits, which is what hits people the most. When people think of what they get, they're not really looking at your product, because what they're thinking is, how can I use your product or service to actually help me? That's what they're asking. So you need to include benefits and features, not just features itself. So don't be one of those who miss out on it and only include the features and don't include the benefits. So that's one of the things that you need to look out for. So I've written out here, benefits is how my product helps you, such as does it save time. Features is what you get. So if you're thinking, okay, how do I go about listing out the benefits and how do I list the features? And you can go through these and use these as an example. Look at these, save precious time, which is the big thing, time, money, effort. And a lot of people on the internet are technophobes, which means they don't like to use technology and they're afraid, so they like to have shortcuts. So you could even mention something like that if your product helps in that area. Conversion rates are important, especially with business owners. So basically you have to know your prospects. What are the greatest needs and what do they want? If you know that, then you can create the benefits. But if you don't, then you can only list out the features and figure out the benefits on your own. So I'd highly recommend that you do some research before you actually write your sales letter. Now, there are many things that you can use to increase your conversion rate, such as endorsements, testimonials, bonuses, and more things like that. So let me go ahead and talk about that in the next video. So let's go ahead and talk about items here that would help increase the conversion rate of your sales letter. We have endorsements, testimonials, proof such as screenshots, or you can use testimonials as proof, bonuses, guarantees, buy it now or call to action parts, and the PS, which is the ending part that comes after your closing area. You can sort of fit endorsements and testimonials similar into each other, proofs as well, but they basically have a little bit different functions. For instance, endorsements. Endorsements can be, for example, a testimonial that you receive from a marketer who might be respected in the industry, and they give you a testimonial that endorses you and says, such so-and-so, John Smith, for example, I endorse John Smith because his products actually convert. That would be an endorsement, and you could use it as a testimonial. And then you have proof, which you can use as screenshots. For example, let's say that you're promoting a product and you say something like, this product is guaranteed to make you money. Now, people are going to think, well, how's that so? Well, you might have some testimonials that tell them saying that, oh, I make thousands and thousands of dollars with this membership, such and such. But with proof gives them actual screenshots that they can see. Now, there's a big debate with people saying that even though they use screenshots, it doesn't convert, blah, 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 because, people can render and create their own screenshots. Yes, that is true. Unfortunately, there are people out there who actually change their, ClickBank, PayPal earnings just to, get their sales letter to convert. It's unfortunate, but there are people out there like you, hopefully, who will be legitimate and honest about your screenshots. But if you have screenshots, go ahead and use them because they do help the conversion rate. Let me just go to the sales letters here, just to show you. We'll take a look at this sales letter. And earlier I was talking about endorsements. So whenever you receive a testimonial that endorses you or proves to people, for instance, this audio testimonial that says, I've made thousands of dollars, and you have an audio testimonial from that person, I like to put it at the top, simply because it helps them see that and they read further down. Now, some people might use the testimonials and they'll put the testimonials in one area, and they'll put 10 or 20 testimonials on one area, and that's fine. But I found, as far as conversion rates go, was it's better to sprinkle testimonials all about your sales copy. So you could be talking about the features here, and then put some more testimonials and talk a little bit more about why it's worth that much, and then put some testimonials there. Whenever you create your testimonials, you do want to make them stand out. So in this example, I'm using NVU here. So if I want to add a testimonial, I could always click on Insert, which you can see here. Click on Insert Table. And I just want to make one table inside here. And right click on Table, Cell Properties. The table size, I normally make it about 450 to 600, so it's dependent on what you want to see. I do 500 pixels, and I put 0 borders, 0 spacing, and about 10 padding. So once I'm done with that, I want to align it, make it center align, and I want to change the background color. As you saw earlier, I tend to use this type of color here. And I press OK, click on Apply, press OK, and you can just include your testimonial here. And of course, you can make other boxes such as that. But you want to make it so that people can tell from the start that this is a testimonial. So when they're scrolling down, they want to find other testimonials, they can do so by finding the square box with the yellow background. So you can sort of separate the testimonials apart from your actual body copy. So those would be similar to endorsements, testimonials, proof, screenshots. It could be in the form of these two. And then we come to bonuses, which allows you to increase your conversion rate even more. And we'll take a look back at the e-cover pack, and you'll notice that he gives you a super bonus number 1, more mini site graphics, super bonus 2, web templates, 3, gold membership access, and more. Now, the one thing to note here is that whenever you provide bonuses, you need to make sure that your bonuses actually relate to your product or service that you're selling. So let's say, for example, you're selling dog training products or obedience training products. You don't want to provide bonuses that deal with cats, just because you want to get your conversion rates up. If a person comes to your sales copy specifically for dog obedience training and they don't have a cat, I mean, what difference is that going to make, right? So you want to make sure that your bonuses actually relate specifically to your product. The more specific they're related, the better conversion rate that you actually receive. And then it comes to our guarantee, which you get a guarantee. It says money back guarantee. You get 30 days to return it, etc., etc. Some sites don't have guarantees, such as this one. This one has a guarantee, and if we scroll down here, I remember I put a guarantee here. It's a 100 no questions asked guarantee. Now, sometimes people will look at that and say, okay, I'll get it. And a lot of times, if you do include a guarantee, that might increase the conversion rate because people know that they can actually return the product if they want. The only thing about internet-based business is that they really can't return it. So you never know. You might get people who get the product so they can keep it and dishonestly refund the product and keep the product, but there's nothing you really can do. But I will say this, guarantees do work, and most of the time you don't get refunds anyways. You might get some, but the more guarantees you have, the better they might opt into buying your product. Then you have the buy area, which is the call to action. You can talk about grab this product now, and right before that you could say this product is worth this much, but you're buying it for this price, and you can prove it to them. And right below the area where you talk about your money back guarantee, you actually have your buy it now or pay now button. And then you have the PS section, which is right below this area. You'll notice that a lot of people will use PS at the bottom here. Basically, PSs or PPS, you'll notice here that the first PS is here, and then as many as you add, you just add a P. So it's PPS, PPPS, PPPPS. So it really depends on how many PPSs you have. And what that is, it allows you to tell the prospect, okay, you've read through all my product, but you're all the way down here. And you can say, finally, you no longer have to, put in this effort because you have this one-click solution. Or you could say something like, this is a tax-deductible product, or, something to back your product up because they're all the way down here. Great, so in the previous videos I showed you real-life examples of 3 different sales copies. In this specific video I'm going to show you more sales copy, and we'll actually go through it, and I'll actually point out the headline, subheadline, and the other parts of the sales letter that we talked about earlier so that you can get a better view of things. And I'll also talk about other helpful methods for you to begin to write better sales copy. The one thing that I found that helped when I began to start out writing sales copy was a lot of people told me go to sales copy that are doing well, or even go to sales copy forums and find sales copy and print it out so that you can write on it. Get out another piece of paper and write on a sheet of paper and basically copy over headline, subheadline, and all that over, because what you're doing is you're writing everything down, and by doing so it really helps your mind think, and it really helps your mind remember the different parts of a sales letter. And most sales letters, if you notice, are made up of parts, headlines, subheadlines, and all that, so they're actually very easy to write out. Here's an example that I'll be using. It's Edmund Lowe's Resale Rights Mastery page here. And you'll notice that at the top he has a sentence up here, a question. And then he has a headline here. It says, secure your instant access to a mammoth collection of constantly adding resale rights, private label rights, graphics, and more, and jumpstart your online marketing career starting this second. So if you notice here, he's using different types of headlines in here. He's sort of doing a cause and effect, sort of like what I talked to you about in the headline earlier. I said, it tells you that you can secure instant access to a collection of this material. So you get this, but what does this stuff do? So he's addressing a feature or a product or service. And then here he says, this right here, if you grab this, it'll jumpstart your online marketing career starting this second. So that's sort of like a guarantee right here. So just remember, when you're writing your headlines, make sure that you mix in different types of headlines into one big headline. And of course he has his sub headline here, and he has the addressing the prospect area right here, from the laptop of so and so, today's date is, etc., etc. Remember, you can use that JavaScript code so that the system will automatically know what the date is. And then he addresses the prospect, and then after that he has the introduction here. So from this point onto here, that's the introduction. And he also uses proofs and screenshots, which I talked to you about earlier, up at the top, because what happens here is when people see that, they think, wow, okay, I want to know more. So where you put your proofs, your evidence, your screenshots, it really doesn't matter where you put it in any order. But as far as endorsements and testimonials, I like to put them at the top. But it's really up to you. You can test it out. You could even do split testing with the Google optimizer that I'll actually be showing you in the next video. So for a while, you'll notice that he uses screenshots a lot. And then way about 1/4 down, you'll notice that he introduces the actual product, which of course is a membership site. And then of course he includes the testimonials here and video endorsements. So you can use the testimonials for the video endorsements. And then he talks about the actual product that he's giving out. Now what he does here is he mixes the benefits and the features together. So, for example, he says, this is what you get. You get a constantly adding resale rights library, and he talks about the library, and then he talks about the benefits. So the features are up here, and he mixes the benefits down here. And for every component, you'll notice the same trend here. Component 2, for example, the constantly adding collection of private label rights material, and he shows the material that people get. So that's sort of like the features, and then he provides the benefits right underneath that. And you can see the same format throughout the whole sales letter. And then at the end he talks about more benefits, because the more benefits the better. And he goes on to talk about the bonuses here. And he gives a 365-day guarantee, and I've read this somewhere, but if you put a guarantee that goes up to a year or even more, sometimes people will buy into that, and that increases your conversion rate extremely, extremely high. So it's a risk to take, because you might have people who a year later say, I want a guarantee, I want that refund back. But as far as conversion rates go, you'll definitely increase it much, much higher than a 60-day guarantee. Because if it's a no-risk type thing like this, they don't have to wait. They can just say, okay, well, I can get it now. There's no risk involved. But you as a seller, you'll have to take that risk. So it's really a trade-off here. And of course you have the call to action, the buy it now section, and the PS section here. So you'll notice that I actually went through all of these, the headline, subheadline, and all this. And this is a great sales letter, and we can check that it actually has all of this material. So make sure that when you write your sales letter, you actually include all of this material that we actually talked about. If you include more, great, but make sure that you include every single one of these to get a better conversion rate. Now, one other thing that I found that helped is if you go to a place called Copywriter's Board. You can find that by going to copywritersboard.com. And it actually belongs to Michael Fortin, which is a very famous copywriter. And I highly recommend these sites, mainly because when you write your sales copy, you can go to people and say, hey, what do you think of this? And a lot of times they'll give you good critiques without you having to go to a copywriter, paying them $1,000 to write your sales copy or edit it. So you can learn a lot from these places, and I'd highly recommend that you look into these places. Okay, so in video 9, I'm going to talk to you about how to use Google's Website Optimizer feature for split testing. If you don't know what split testing is, it's basically a method that allows you to test the conversion rate. So let's say, for example, you have version A, and version B of your sales copy has slightly different things, such as slightly different headlines. It has a video promo, things are moved around perhaps, and you have different sub-headlines, text, different sales copy. What that does, it allows you to test between sales copy A and sales copy B to see which one is actually better converting. So with Google Website Optimizer's feature, they allow you to do just that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to Google here, and I'm going to simply type in the keyword Google Website Optimizer. And you can go ahead and click it. It's at google.com/website optimizer. If you don't know anything about Website Optimizer and you'd like to know a little more information about it before you actually get started, you can also read below here. There's tutorials and user guides and things like that. But I'm actually going to show you how to do just that. So what you want to do is click on the Create a New Experiment link. So go ahead and do that. There are two choices. You can either do an A/B experiment or a multivariate experiment. Now, if you're just getting started out, you'd probably have to use the A/B experiment, because one of the requirements is that your page receives fewer than 1,000 views a week. The multivariate experiment requires you to have more than 1,000 views per week. So if your site is already receiving more than 1,000 views a week, you can go ahead and use this. But in this case, we're going to assume that you're just starting out, and we're going to use the A/B experiment. So go ahead and click on Create. So it gives you a brief overview of the A/B experiment checklist. So what you want to do is you want to do 1, choose the page you would like to test. So whether it's your sales copy, you can get the link directly to your sales copy, and I'll show you that in just a minute. And then you want to create an alternate version of that test page. So you have version A, which is the original, and version B, which might have a different headline, have a video promo or other things added to it. And third, you can identify your actual conversion page. Your conversion page is basically like your thank you page. So you only have one of those, right? But you have, in this case, version A, version B, so you have two different sales copies, but they all get to the thank you page. So basically what you're testing here is, okay, if they're clicking A or B, how many times can they get from A to B to the thank you page? Basically, which one converts actually. So you really don't have to mess with anything like payment processors. Google will actually detect which page actually converts. And it doesn't actually have to necessarily deal with payment. You can also make Google's Website Optimizer test out forms. Do people fill out forms? Do they click a button? Do they fill out contact forms, sign up for a newsletter, things like that. So once you're ready to do that and you understand that concept, we can go ahead and click on this and click on Continue. It's very easy to set up. The first thing you want to do is you want to name your experiment and the identified pages. So in this case, I'm going to call it the Online Copywriting Pro Test. And originally it starts out with 2 pages, the original page and the page variation URL, which is basically that copied over with a different headline, different forms, things like that. You can also add another page variation, but in this case we're just going to play with 2 pages, A and B, and that's it. Okay, so here's what I've done. I've taken a original page and created it there under the split testing folder, and then I have created a duplicate of that located here, but it has the number 2 in front of it. And what Google is going to do is it's going to detect whether that page actually exists. So it said page found, so that's good. Now that we have page 1 and page 2, we can identify our conversion page, which in this case is my thanks.html page. So once we're done with that, click on continue. On this page you have 2 choices. You can either send your web team to install the JavaScript tags. That means that you have an actual team that will do the job for you. Google won't actually do the job for you, basically emailing your team. But in this case we're actually installing it ourselves, so we'll want to click on this at the bottom here and click on continue. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is install and validate the JavaScript tags. And it's very easy to do. There's only 3 pages if you remember. And it'll tell you what to do on every exact page. So the index.html page, it says paste the following in the beginning and then paste the following at the end. And then it also talks about down here different pages, and as well as the conversion page, which is your thank you page. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go open up TextPad here, and you can see the index.html page and the code here. And if you don't know anything about the code, that's fine. You don't need to know anything about code. I'm going to move this to side, and it says here that to paste the following at the beginning of the original page's source. And if you don't know, there's always this question mark that you can click and find out more information that way. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this over to my index.html page. And what you need to do is don't put it all the way at the beginning. It says the beginning, but what it actually means is put it right before your body tag. So if you scroll down, every web page should have a body tag in the beginning at the top. So put the control strip at the top, and then I'll move this aside, and then it says paste the following at the end of your page's source code. So you need to paste this at the end of your body tag. So there's another body tag. I scroll all the way down to the bottom. You'll notice that there's a body tag here, and I'll just put it right before there. And this script has nothing to do with it. That's actually a different script for tracking. But we've saved the index.html file. We're going to save that. The index2.html page, click that, right click, copy, and then I'll go to the index2.html. And of course it said at the very end of all your pages, so we'll put it right at the end before the body tag. And we'll save that. And go to the thanks.html page and copy this at the very end as well. So we'll go here, thanks.html page, copy that over, click on save, and then what we want to do is we want to upload all those files that we just saved into here. So once that's complete, then you want to go back here and validate the pages. So click on validate pages, and what Google has done is validated that the scripts are on your page. So we're good to go. Click on OK, and then click on continue. And we have installed the scripts, and you can begin to preview the experiment. So click on this or click on that, doesn't matter. Okay, so this is the original, and if I click on next, I I should be able to see the variation. And you can change things on here if you like, it's up to you. And since we have successfully seen that it works, we're good to go, and you can go ahead and click Start Experiment. And if you want to access your reports, within 3 to 4 hours you should start to see reports. So if you go to the main screen here to the website optimizer, you're going to see that you have an experiment running. And of course you can run other experiments on that same site or a different site just by doing that and doing what I showed you over again.